I think the umpire in this example gives a penalty corner for either obstruction or for physical contact. I'm not sure which, but it's one of the strangest decisions I've ever seen. In fact, the only one I can recall that is anywhere near similar to it is one from an international match involving Holland a few years ago. Here the Dutch defender backs into an Argentinian attacker and then pushes the ball through another attacker's body and charges into him. Appeals for a free hit and is awarded it. Very odd. He'd committed 2 offences and then got a free hit. This seems quite similar. The attacker charges across behind the defender who is receiving the ball, turns his back on him and then marches backwards into him. Very, very strange. And then appears to appeal for obstruction as he tries to tackle the defender from behind, from a position where he cannot possibly be obstructed. The term offside has fallen into disuse in hockey because in 1997 the offside rule was deleted. But for the purposes of obstruction we can still use offside. A player is offside when he is his opponent's goal side of both his opponent and the ball, as the blue player is here. From this position it is impossible to be obstructed. To be obstructed, the player would have to be his own goal side of the ball and of the opponent. All that is happening here is that the attacker is committing yet another physical contact offence. Here we have another incident where the defenders are trying to tackle from behind the forward. Appears to award a penalty against the attacker for obstruction, but in that position obstruction was an impossibility. A similar kind of thing here. The Dutch forward is crabbing along the baseline with the Argentinian defenders trying to tackle him from behind his position, not goal side of him. They can't be obstructed in this position. The umpire in this case got it right, did not penalise the Dutch player. I've previously got this next incident incorrect by declaring it to be obstruction, where in fact it's not. The player in white is chasing the player in black, who props and turns around on the ball. Player in white, taken by his own motion past his position, so he's off balance and not in a position where he can even attempt to tackle, and the player in black is able to use the space available to make a shot. No obstruction here, because of course the player receiving the ball can be receiving it in any direction without giving obstruction, and he's given time to control it, and in that time he makes the pass, which is picked up by the original passer. A very nice 3-man movement here. This incident looks initially as if it's got to be an obstruction, but it isn't. The attacker, player in possession of the ball, props, turns round, the player behind him can't be obstructed because he's behind the play, then turns his back on the German player who is goal side of the ball, but that player then lays his stick flat on the ground, as does the initial tackler, and neither of them make an attempt to play at the ball. Now we have 2 incidents which look quite similar but are very different. The attacker shunts across the front of the defender there, blocking him off from the ball and obstructing him. The defender is certainly intending to play at the ball and is within playing distance and is in a balanced position. This incident is quite different because the attacker pulls the ball back and makes room for himself to move across the front of the defender. Pulls the ball back out of the reach of the defender. The defender is still moving backwards, and he uses that space to cross into the front of the circle and shoot. Pulls the ball back and clear of the defender. Defender is still retreating with momentum. Then he uses the time and space he's got to reposition.
And Mike, this is the perfect example of using your body to shield the ball. Look at the foot position to get the ball from Förster. Then he uses his shoulders, protects it, whips it across.
Simon Mason in commentary describes this as shielding the ball. Shielding the ball for me is shielding the ball when within the playing reach of the defender. That is what is meant by shielding the ball in the obstruction rule. This is not shielding the ball. This is using created space.